Facebook dancing hands. Hello. All right. Now I'm just waiting for the Facebook Live. Hi, everybody. I am Jen Fine. I'm head of product at YouLi, and I am here with Sean, who's our product expert, and Vika, who's our senior marketing magician. That's why she's got the awesome fairy lights behind her. And we are here today to talk about basically the best way to take payments on the YouLi platform. And we are sort of announcing a relatively new capability, which is called checkout flow. And we're going to contrast that against our existing sort of default payment flow, which is called register to pay. So if you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to go off mute and ask them or type them into Facebook and we will get back to you. So we're just going to go ahead and kick off here. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through a couple of examples today, but the overall goal of today's session is to help you understand the best booking flow for your audience. So YouLi is a booking and travel management platform. We want to make it possible for you to create the flows that are right for your business and for your audience. And in particular, we recognize that a lot of you are thinking about sort of replacing a sort of e-commerce checkout kind of flow, and we're going to do a case study of showing how one of our clients has replaced an e-commerce checkout from their existing website with the new checkout flow on YouLi. But we recognize that that's not always the right mentality. So sometimes the e-commerce checkout mentality isn't always the right one, and we'll talk through those examples. So when you're thinking about your booking flow, to identify the best checkout flow for your audience, you kind of need to ask yourself a couple of questions like, do you collect applications before you approve guests for a trip? So some businesses actually don't want to just take any booking. They want to think about making sure that the group is cohesive. And so they actually require applications beforehand. There's also whether or not you run an abandoned cart campaign or you want the ability to do that or to have a concept of like a wait list. So you could have people who are sort of registered or expressed interest on it, but haven't yet paid. And so you can use that list that you've collected to either market to them to say, hey, you haven't finished your transaction, go ahead and do it. Or you can use it as a bit of a wait list in case you're full, but someone cancels last minute, and you can kind of reach out to those people who are sort of registered but not paid. So those are two examples that kind of don't work quite well with some of the ways that like e-commerce checkouts work. Whereas if you prefer collecting deposits at the moment of registration, so basically you're in the very enviable position where you don't want to know who that person is unless they're ready to pay. That's a great place to be. Many of our clients are in that position. They have really active and engaged audiences. So they just want click, enter your registration information and pay in one transaction. They don't want it to be a multi-step thing. They don't want to do any kind of a reviewing of those applications. And then, of course, the last question is, what channels do you use to promote your trip? So have you already educated your audience in other channels, in other ways, so that they are ready to just buy? They don't need to review. They don't need to think about it. They are just ready to buy. So if the answer to the last two questions there is yes, you've already promoted through other channels and you want to collect deposit at that moment, then you're probably more of a checkout flow person. But if you're more in the top two, where you're sort of looking to do those two things, then you're probably more of a register to pay kind of business. So with that kind of context in mind, and you're hopefully thinking to yourself, like, well, what kind of audience do I have? Hopefully you're starting to kind of put yourself in a different category here. And now I'll kind of dig into the technicalities of the different ways that you implement that within the YouLi platform. So we have the default register to pay flow and the one-page checkout flow. So I'll just kind of show you the summary of the checkout flow. And that's the one where I said, you have already educated your travelers and they are ready to register and pay in one step and their booking is confirmed. And then they see their itinerary and it can be personalized to them. They can pick their add-ons from there. They see their personalized tasks, all that good stuff. So that's one way. And then the other way is the register to pay flow. And you'll notice that the itinerary is the first thing they see instead of the last thing they see. And so in this case, you're expecting them to be still maybe exploring a little bit, like they want to have that confidence of like, okay, I see what my itinerary is. Then they click on to the registration pop-up. Now remember, you can change that CTA, the call to action on that button. It doesn't have to say register, it can say express interest, it can say join waitlist, it can say book now. So for those of you who are familiar with YouLi, you know that it doesn't have to say register, it can use whatever language you prefer, but they have to enter their contact information before they proceed. And so because of that, you know who they are, even if they abandon in this next step. And that allows you to collect that information to do abandoned cart campaigns. But assuming that they go through the full flow, then they'll click to pay, and then you end up in the same place. So the great thing about both of these flows is that in both cases, you end up with a booking. So, no loss, right? There's no wrong choice here. There's only what's right for your business. So I'm just going to pause here and just check and make sure that the high level distinction between these two flows makes sense.
I think so. From my perspective, I think you did a good job kind of showing the benefits of each. And just to be clear, register to pay is what we have. That's the default.
That is the default. That's
YouLi
correct.
setting. So anyone who's experimented with YouLi on an Explorer plan, anyone who's familiar with YouLi, that's what you've already experienced. That's
right. And so you don't have to change anything if you like the register to pay flow. And that's just what YouLi does out of the box. That's the default. And the option that we are now offering to our enterprise customers is this checkout flow kind of model. And the reason why it's a little bit specialized is because it's not really for everyone, right? But let's talk through the case where it is right for you. So let's jump into this example. I'm just gonna pull up. Let me just jump back. Sorry, 1 second. What I want to show you is kind of what Women High in Adventure had before. So this is their website on Squarespace, and they have basically a page describing the Kilimanjaro treks. You can pick your date, and you can pick your add-on, and then you can pick your payment method. And look at that, sold out. Let's pick another one. And then you can click book now. Now, isn't that interesting? It's been added to your cart. So this is kind of a weird experience, right? So this is your kind of like your e-commerce like experience if you do it as an add-on to your existing website. So if you were not using YouLi and you were doing an e-commerce checkout, this would be the kind of experience you'd create. And then you have to come in here and then you have to click and do the checkout. And then you would go through this checkout process and you would fill out this form, but then you just end up on the website. You don't end up anywhere that gives you more information, right? And so the WOA team came to us and said, we want a better experience than what we can get out of the box with our e-commerce integration. And that is how we came to work with them to launch the checkout flow. And so what you can see here is a draft of what their Kilimanjaro New Year's Eve Summit V2 trip looks like in the checkout flow model. And so instead of clicking to add to the cart, and then you have to click to the add to cart, and then you do that, instead, you're just going to click from that page that we saw on their Squarespace, and you land here. And so you immediately get that visual of what it is that you're booking into. You can choose between your packages here. And then based on that, you can enter the contact information. And if this was actually multiple people, so if you were booking for more than one person, it would actually prompt you for all their contact information here. If you had any add-ons, it would be prompting you to do that here as well. And then you can choose to either pay the deposit, you can see what your payment schedule is going to be, or you can choose to pay in full. And then from here, you can choose the payment methods that are enabled. And again, this is all very familiar to YouLi clients. This is very, very similar to the way that the invoice works on the register to pay model. It's just in a slightly different organization. And then if you have refundable booking enabled through Refund Protect, then that's also integrated. And then you can see a total of the base price, any additional like refundable booking or add-ons that you might have added. and then it'll tell you the total that you're opting into. And then if you selected deposit, it shows you you're just paying the deposit, any surcharges that are payable now, and then the amount that you're paying right now. And you check that box and you click to pay now. So once you complete that payment, you drop onto the trip page. And so now, again, for those of you who've been on the YouLi platform, this looks quite familiar. This is, the trip page, but sort of scroll down and focus on the fact that you have booked into this trip. And now you can go into your to-do list and complete all your tasks, and you can load into the app, and you can, of course, review the rest of the highlights here. So that is the way that the WOA team really wanted to engage with their travelers, such that the booking actually lands you not onto a generic confirmation page, but onto a page that's personalized for that traveler. So not only have they booked, but they're now in their adventure hub, and they can now immediately jump in and get to their tasks and see all the information that's been prepared by the WOA team. So it's just a much nicer customer experience than just thanks for your deposit, which is what the typical e-commerce experience does. And then you sort of hope that they go and click on the email that you've sent them as a confirmation. Whereas here, they come off your website, they go through the checkout flow, and they land immediately onto their personalized trip page. Sean, how'd I do on that one?
Great. I mean, yeah, you're right. It looks very similar to the standard YouLi process. So and the thing is, they stay on that WOA website, right, when they're making that payment. They don't leave until that payment goes through.
So YouLi is an extension of your website because of the way that we do the white label domain, right? And so when the customer clicks to book this, they are experiencing the WOA Travel brand on the white label domain of YouLi. So your customer doesn't see this as leaving your website. They see this as an extension. They see this as a checkout flow, sort of much in the same way that when you're on Amazon, if you put something into your shopping cart and then you click to check out, all the navigation goes away and they put you into this focus space, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening here. And that's why we really highly recommend the white label domain part of this, so that the domain is also yours, as well as all of the sort of information on the page. You'll also notice how much branding there is here that's sort of specific to the particular customers. So your logo's here, the font that you've picked is here, your brand color is being used for the headlines. So, it just feels very much like your brand experience and is an extension of your website.
Awesome.
All right. So that's the sort of that is the checkout flow. And so I'll just jump back here and just kind of review. This is the register and pay in one step, and then land on your personalized itinerary to complete your tasks and see all of your documents. Now I'm going to do a walkthrough of the register to pay invoice flow. And so this is the one that we all know and love. So that's, you're on a trip page. This is our default style. We also have a sales page style. And the customer gets to come here and explore, right? And go, ooh, yeah, I do. That's a beautiful Riyadh. And oh, I get a market day. And so I get to kind of experience a bit of what I'm purchasing before I choose to click and engage and give my contact information. So that's one of the key differences between the checkout flow and the register to pay, is that the first encounter that the customer has is actually with the highlights, the why they are choosing to book in and travel with you, right? And so then once they click on whatever call to action button you've configured for your register to pay flow, they'll be prompted to complete their information. And potentially, if you've enabled this, they can register more than one person at a time. And then once they complete that, and then they'll be prompted to, sorry, let me just fill this one out. So once they do that registration, they're going to be prompted to pay, right? Because this trip has bookings enabled on it, right? And so when they click to check out, that takes them here. They get to pick their package. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can actually toggle between register to pay and checkout flow. So you can set up your trip one way and then change your mind and flip it to the other. It's all the exact same information on the planner side that you set up. It's just that it's displayed slightly differently. And so you could even have it different per trip. So you could have one trip where you do actually want to have it register to pay, and another trip that you want checkout flow, and that can be configured differently for each trip. And then once they pick the room and they pick their add-ons, and then they, again, going through all of the same stuff, very familiar, choose your payment plan, choose your payment method. So let's do all of that. We'll pay by bank transfer. Oops, I need to pick a pay deposit. And then we can confirm our payment, right? And so once we do that, then we're booked in. And so we've ended up at the same place in both cases, right? So here we are, I've booked into my payment, similar to how at the end of that other flow, I'm booked in, right? So you end in the same place. It's just a matter of whether or not I started with the highlights and then registered and then paid, or if I was sold on the trip somewhere else, not inside the YouLi trip page, I come here, I register and pay, and then I see my trip page.
So for checkout flow, for the checkout flow, you're never gonna start on the trip page. You're always gonna start correct. Somewhere else. Okay. So for people who are interested in that, what do they have to do to set up that somewhere else? Is that just having an external website, or how do they go about that?
That's a great question. And that's why this is a really important sort of decision in terms of asking yourself, like, what channels are you using to promote that new trip? And in those channels, do you provide enough information so that your customer is ready to buy? Like, they're not still exploring, like
because what you're losing on checkout flow is, well, not like depending on your setup, but what you could be losing on checkout flow is everything the trip page does to sell your trip.
Exactly. And so a lot of travel businesses do set up, sorry, let me just jump back to that. They do set up a bit of sorry, let me just go back to this, sort of trip pages on their sites. So if you have invested a lot in creating trip pages on your own website and you want it to look very different, right? Like, as you can see, this is a very different style than our trip pages. Sorry, the images are taking a little while to load here. So it's a very different trip page style than our standard trip page is, right? And so if you've got the staff and the content and the energy to kind of build one of these, let me see if I can just go back and get a page to load here for us. If you've got the staff and the content to kind of create a super custom page like this for each one of your trips, in addition to creating trip pages, that's a choice that you get to make as a business. And it's not a wrong choice. It's, that's fine, because you know that this is what gets your people excited to go on these trips, is this kind of style of page, and you want to have that level of control. But it's a lot of extra work, right? And so not all of our clients want to do it there and do it on the trip page. So they prefer to have the sort of register to pay model, where all this information is actually on the trip page. People see it, then they register, and then they pay. But it's a great question in terms of like, well, where is this information? Well, yeah, if you choose checkout flow, the answer is that information's somewhere else. It could be because you're promoting it through a referral partner and they're doing the selling. They've already explained it, and they just need the link to be like, I'm ready to book. Give me the link to pay, right? Whereas if you don't have that channel where they're already like primed and ready to buy, then you probably need something a bit more like the register to pay model, where you want them to spend a little time exploring all the beautiful content that you've put into the highlights, the itinerary, the overview, and everything on the trip page.
Awesome.
So Oh, sorry, go ahead, Vika.
And I wanted to ask if you can clarify and tell us a little bit more about the abandoned carts campaigns. Like what is it about?
Yeah, well, so let's actually jump to some examples of some clients who do the register to pay model. So Run Wild Retreats actually does this somewhat for abandoned cart, but actually even more importantly for waitlisting. So the problem with the checkout flow model is if you're sold out, no one else can get onto the trip because you're sold out, right? And it's got a paywall that says you pay or you can't get onto the trip. Whereas if you do this in the register to pay model, then somebody can be exploring here. And then even though it's sold out at the moment, you can still join the wait list. And so you can still put your contact information in, and then you get dropped onto the invoice and it says, sorry, we're sold out, right? And so we do the inventory management still. So we're the great thing about the trip page is that Eleanor is not going to end up overbooked, but she's going to get these people who register in so that if somebody cancels last minute, she's got this list on the trip. And so she can literally just go in, cancel the person that's canceled, take them off, then the inventory becomes available. And then from the trip CRM on YouLi, she can just select all the people who haven't yet booked, which they're on the wait list, and send them an email that says, hey, a spot opened up. And whoever clicks through first gets to claim that spot. And that's because there's this sort of register prior to payment step that's added in here. And so similarly with abandoned cart, people can register in. If they get distracted by their kids and they don't do that next step, you can just send them a message and say, hey, we've got 2 spots left. Be sure to click through and finish your transaction. So whether you're doing it as a waitlist model or just as a way of making sure that you capture the easiest information, which is name and email, and then capturing the payment information as a second step. So in case they get interrupted in the payment process, you can still contact them and say, don't forget to check out. We've only got a few spots left. All right. I'm waiting for the, go ahead.
I think that's great explanation. And also just bringing the same example from Eleanor's trips, she uses those lists to promote the future events as well, right? So it's not just for this trip that she's trying to fill in the spots, but she's building this huge database of clients who were ever once interested in the trip that she was promoting.
And just showing you what the trip CRM looks like on the YouLi planner side. So these people are registered, but not yet booked. And so I can actually filter this and say, give me all the people who are not booked. And then I can message all of them and send them a message that says, 2 spots left. And the great thing about this kind of abandoned cart program is the link that they get is actually personalized. They're going to get a magic link with their information pre-configured. All they have to do is pay. They don't have to enter their information again because you already have it there. And so it's very personalized, and you can send that out knowing, because you use YouLi to do your inventory management, that if there are only 2 spots left, you can send this out to all 13 people who haven't yet booked. And whoever are the first 2 to manage to get their credit card in fast enough are the ones who are going to get those spots. And then after that, anyone who clicks through late is just going to be told that it's sold out. But again, they'll still be on that list in case you do get a last minute cancellation.
Now, is there a waitlist package that's set up for all of them to go on, or is there just, they don't have to set any of that up?
That's a great question. And different clients do that different ways. So sometimes people like to have an explicit package called waitlist, and you can absolutely, if you have enough packages, you can do that. But you can also just have them sort of like not on a package because everything is sold out. So it just really depends.
But even if everything's sold out, they can still join that. They can still, join the wait list.
Yeah, and it's like we call it join the wait list, but basically it's just registering on the trip. And joining the wait list just is what you call it when you can't go to the next step, right? Like you can't pay
Yeah.
because it's sold out. And so the important thing to recognize in terms of that distinction is like with the checkout flow, you can't get to that stage, right? Because if it's sold out, they will not be able to proceed from this step, right? So although this is where actually, this is where the sort of, do you only want to collect the registration information of people who are ready to pay, right? And that's the, as in like, you don't want to waste your time with anyone who's not ready to put the $500 down versus this one where, sometimes it's a little bit of an extra bit of work in the sense that you've got like, okay, well, of these 15 people who clicked, and expressed interest, how many of them are really serious? Like, you may not know, right? And so for some people, that's just annoying and extra work. And so for some people, that's a gold mine of opportunity. And it just really depends on your perspective and the audience and whether or not you feel like you have the time to kind of follow up with them versus you just don't want to, you only want them on your trip if they're ready to pay.
Awesome. So now looking at both of that, can you have both of those? Or even say somebody wants to change a trip after, say the trip sells out in checkout flow.
Yeah.
Can they switch it back so then they can start taking people as a wait list?
Yes.
Can they have
yes,
both?
You absolutely can. Yep. And so, so you can absolutely toggle that. So if you do sell out, and sorry, I'm just on the wrong one here. If you're sold out, but you want to actually start collecting people onto the wait list, you can actually toggle it back to register to pay. And then people will land onto the trip page, be prompted, and then you'll want to change your call to action to say join wait list. And then you can let them register, but then they'll just be blocked from checking out because it'll be sold out. So yeah, so that's a great way to kind of have it both ways, which is like before you're full, checkout flow. Once you're full, switch to register to pay and start collecting people onto the wait list. So yes, very good trick. That's why you're the product expert.
And this also looks like, based on this toggle, it looks like it's a trip by trip basis.
Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely right. It is a trip by trip basis. When you do get the checkout flow feature enabled for your account, you can have that be your default. So that is what all trips are by default, or you can have your default be the register to pay. So once you have that feature enabled, but if you don't have this feature enabled, just just note that this is currently an enterprise feature. So if you're interested in kind of moving to that level, it's available there. And so do reach out to find out more about whether or not that makes sense for your business at this stage. And then to answer the sort of larger question, can I have both at the same time? Which is a question that we got recently from a client. And it's such a great idea, but currently not supported. So the idea that you could actually potentially simultaneously have, like, depending on the channel, like maybe on social media, you direct them to the trip page and let them browse around and then register to pay. Whereas if you're sending through a travel agent, you just send them the checkout flow link because, you just want them to pay and you don't want to distract them with the pretty pictures in between. And so I think that's something that we are going to ultimately want to support, is that ability to have both turned on depending on which link you send. Whereas right now, there's only one share link on the trip page. And so depending on whether or not you've configured that link, it either takes you to checkout flow or it takes you to the trip page for the register to pay. But yeah, I love the fact that every time we roll something out, in terms of giving people options, there's always like that next level that our clients take us to in terms of wanting to do both at the same time. All right, I think I've done all the explaining that makes sense to me, but I'm totally open to any questions that people might have, or any comments in terms of, like, have you identified which flow sort of feels right to you? I know we have a couple of people kind of on the line here. Let's see if anybody wants to share their thoughts.
Also, feel free to share the thoughts in the chat as well.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, we're very excited to be offering these two modes, and we're really interested to see how people kind of think about transitioning from an e-commerce mode into a sort of a checkout flow mode. Thank you, Christina. So just a comment from Christina. I don't have any questions, but love the option of the quicker version for wait lists. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, the thing about the YouLi platform is we're all about supporting you to create the flows and the experiences for the audience that you have. And so if you do have any follow-up questions where you want to like really dig into the way that your business is operating and which of these flows makes the most sense for your business, you can absolutely reach out to support and book in, you know, one of our paid consulting engagements. And then we just do a lot of like heavy one-on-one conversations to dig into these questions and help you configure this right, help you configure wait lists. You know, what's the right way? Do you need a package? Do you not need a package? And the great thing is once you've done that, you set it up and then that's your template. You roll it out for all your trips. So don't be intimidated. This is all really accessible. Just takes a little bit of thought, and then you can focus on the fun stuff, which is actually going on those trips. Oh, we have a raised hand here.
That's me. I have a comment from one of our viewers on Facebook that says, "This looks lovely, but I'm not an enterprise client." So that's the part we didn't talk about yet.
Yes. Yeah, and so I think if you open a support request and find out whether or not you're eligible, there are certain circumstances where we can make this available to non-enterprise clients, but it is generally an advanced feature. So please do connect and let us know, and perhaps there will be an option for you. So just go ahead and email to support@youli.io or open a conversation from within the little help bubble inside of YouLi.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you for
all
that
right, all
recap. Well, guys, I'm really glad that we were able to walk through this process with you today. And I look forward to getting more and more customers onto the checkout flow, and also, you know, seeing the creative flows that you create just within the register to pay model. So, you know, it was actually one of our clients that came up with the join waitlist usage. And so, you know, be creative and be sure to share with us the way that you deliver the best customer experience on YouLi for your travelers. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.